Listen up, everyone. Welcome to this Code Ninja Security Advisory. We are issuing an immediate tactical briefing on a critical threat that's currently targeting our foundational web infrastructure. Look, this explainer's not a drill, okay? This is an active vulnerability assessment, and it's designed to hand you the exact intelligence you need to defend your perimeter right now. If you've got web servers spinning anywhere in your environment, you need to pay very close attention to what we're about to cover. We're anchoring today's intel on a newly confirmed vulnerability. Let's get the designation right out there, CVE 2026-3352. Pinning this down right away cuts through the noise. It establishes our factual baseline. Whenever a new threat drops, knowing the exact common vulnerabilities and exposures record ensures your incident response teams aren't chasing ghosts. They're researching and patching the actual flaw. We are dealing with confirmed, documented intelligence here. So, what's in our crosshairs today? It's the Apache HTTP Server. Specifically, we're tracking an HTTP response splitting flaw, which is basically a really sneaky way for attackers to manipulate server replies, and it affects multiple modules across the server environment. My objective with this disclosure is incredibly straightforward. We need to force a vendor patch across all your environments and trigger immediate mitigation protocols. Apache powers a massive chunk of the internet, so a vulnerability here, yeah, it has wide-reaching implications for global web infrastructure. To really grasp the escalating urgency here, just look at how incredibly fast this moved. We're talking about a 72-hour sprint from discovery to mitigation. On May 4th, the vulnerability was discovered by security researchers Haruki Oyama from Waseda University alongside Merid Mengistiabe and Dalit Jung. Bam, immediately logged to the CVE program by the Apache Software Foundation. The very next day, May 5th, Ubuntu initiated its tracking protocol. By May 6th, the official Ubuntu security notice, USN 8239-1, hits the wire. And by May 7th, their final long-term support patch cycle was updated. That rapid-fire progression, it tells you everything you need to know about the severity of this threat and exactly how fast you need to be moving. All right, I'm going to pause the technical deep dive for just a second because I need to verify our comlink is solid. As a white hat researcher, my ability to protect your perimeter literally relies on this intel actually reaching you before the adversaries spin up their automated scanners.
So here's your action plan to maintain this secure channel. First, make sure you're subscribed to @cybertech79 and you've got notifications turned on. Honestly, it's a baseline security necessity if you want real-time threat intel. Second, drop a like on this briefing right now. I treat that as a formal ACK packet, a clear acknowledgement that you've received this crucial intel.
And finally, we need a quick census. Drop into the comments and answer this specific question. Are you patched or are you vulnerable? Seriously, logging your current infrastructure status actively helps us gauge the real-world blast radius of this 0 day out in the wild. We have to know who is still exposed. Okay, comms check complete. Let's initiate the deep dive protocol. Under the hood, this vulnerability is historically tracked under CWE 443, which categorizes HTTP response splitting. How does this actually work? Well, it's a fascinating and frankly terrifying manipulation of basic web protocols. The exploit triggers when your Apache server acts as a proxy, and it blindly forwards a malicious status line coming from an untrusted or maybe already compromised backend server. Think of it like an attacker sneaking invisible enter keys, carriage returns, and line feeds right into the data stream. Your Apache server gets completely tricked into reading one single response as two entirely separate ones, and it serves them right up to the client.
Once they control that phantom secondary response we just talked about, man, the blast radius opens right up. Attackers can execute a whole menu of downstream impacts. They can trigger cross-site scripting, or XSS, directly inside the user's browser. They can execute cache poisoning, literally forcing your server to cache and serve their malicious payload to all future visitors. Or, worst-case scenario, they can execute full-blown session hijacking, stealing authentication tokens and totally compromising user accounts.
Now, here's where things get a little weird and frankly a bit dangerous. Check out this discrepancy. CISA-ADP slaps a base score of 6.5 on this, categorizing it as a solid medium severity threat. But then you look at the vendors. Both Apache and Ubuntu's internal assessments have downgraded its priority to low. As defenders, this is exactly why we can't afford to just blindly follow vendor severity ratings. You have to exercise independent vigilance. Let me prove to you why you can't just brush this off, despite that low vendor rating. Let's break down the actual CVSS vector string assigned by CISA. Attack vector? Network, meaning it can be exploited remotely by anyone, anywhere. Attack complexity? Low, meaning the bad guys don't need some crazy convoluted chaining technique to pull this off. It's easy. Privileges required?
None. They don't need a guest account or stolen credentials. User interaction? None. Your admins don't have to click a fishy link for the payload to detonate. Zero authentication, zero user interaction, directly over the internet. That is a potent combination that demands your immediate attention. So who exactly is in the crosshairs? Here is the exact NIST configuration mapping. If your infrastructure is running any Apache HTTP server version starting from 2.4.0 all the way through 2.4.66, you are officially vulnerable. Do not make the mistake of assuming you're safe just because you updated a couple of months ago. If your version falls inside this bracket, your server is actively vulnerable to malicious status line forwarding. Which brings us to the remediation strategy. Your magic number is 2.4.67. That is your target fixed upstream version. This is the specific release that packs the patch to properly sanitize and handle those shady backend status lines. Every system administrator listening to this needs to make deploying this specific version their absolute top priority. For those of you relying on package managers, specifically the Ubuntu long-term support releases, here is your actionable intel. Ubuntu has already rolled out fixes for 2604, 2404, and 2204 LTS. But listen up. Here's a critical warning for anyone still running legacy infrastructure on 2004, 1804, or 1604 LTS. Those distros are currently sitting under a needs evaluation status, meaning you don't have an automated fix yet. You need to monitor this incredibly closely and get your manual mitigations ready. Based on everything we've covered, I'm issuing a non-negotiable mitigation protocol. Step 1, force the upgrade. Move those source compiled deployments to Apache 2.467 immediately. Step 2, apply your OS level patches. Fire up your package managers and get updated right now. And step 3, honestly, this is the big one for preventing future exploitation. Audit your backend trust. Because this entire flaw relies on compromised backend servers, you have got to implement strict input sanitation. You need to rigorously verify internal APIs and immediately sever ties with any untrusted third-party backend servers. Cut them off. Look, the whole ethical framework of coordinated vulnerability disclosure demands total transparency. Users need to know to protect their systems. We absolutely cannot wait for active exploitation to start making headlines. It's my duty as a security researcher to get this intel into your hands so you can harden your infrastructure before the threat actors get their exploit scripts automated. We protect the perimeter by sharing knowledge, plain and simple. So get out there, apply those patches, and double-check your configs. But as you do, it really leaves us with a bigger question to ask ourselves this week. Are we blindly trusting our internal backend servers a little too much? Audit that trust. And as always, stay secure.